comes to aging, it's not how old you are, but how you are old that matters. So how do you keep living life your way when it makes sense to access services that can make a difference? Brought to you by Uniting AgeWell, the Aging Ideal aims to start conversations to cut through the noise and provide people with a greater understanding of this important chapter of life.
I think it's a great responsibility for everyone to go out and maybe do some self-reflection about what your concepts of ageing is. Because I think ageing is something that we're all doing. You know, we all age from conception or birth, and it's really a privilege to do so. I think not everyone gets the opportunity to age.
There are many misconceptions about ageing, along with unconscious bias about older people and what they can and can't do. Research has shown that we often underestimate people as they age, and certainly people themselves can lose confidence and may even buy into the narrative of the limitations of ageing. One such piece of research is around what is known as the aging paradox. This research refutes the assumption that we are happier and more resilient when we are younger and lose that ability in the later years. In this episode, we'll speak to some pretty interesting people about their experience of ageing and explore their outlook. We'll meet Ian Braybrook and Mazza Bennett, who enjoy life in their regional community and reflect on how they experience resilience. They're a great couple who still host a daily radio show from home. Liz Hicklin is one of a kind, a bright, attractive and charismatic woman. Her resilience shines through the older she gets. Liz lost 2 daughters to suicide when she was a younger woman, which would destroy most people. But at 94 years old, Liz goes from strength to strength. She turned her hand to comedy just a year ago. Life has had its ups and downs, but Liz says life began for her at 90. But first, we speak to Dr Anita Goh, Associate Professor at the National Aging Research Institute, about the misconceptions of ageing and why we need to change the narrative. It may not be true of everyone, but it makes a lot of sense that for some people, ageing affords the opportunity to take life's experience and choose to live in a more positive way. The assumption that society's perception of beauty, worth, and what is considered desirable may not be attainable once we reach a certain age can see some people lose their desire to continue to challenge themselves. Dr Anita Goh explains more about resilience as we age. I am so interested in your perspective on ageing and how important this perspective is. But I'm going to say a couple of words to you that maybe you might want to flesh out a little bit, and that is the aging paradox. What is that?
So the aging paradox is something that has emerged from research about, look, when you get older, things might decline as you age. So physical function may or may not decline, but it could happen. Cognition or your thinking skills may or may not decline, but they might. And things like your mood might change over time. So it's this real mindset of you might have deficits, but we find that people actually are resilient and can do well in older age. However, when I look at the aging paradox and when I read the research about the aging paradox, something about it rubs me the wrong way in just the way that it's phrased, and it's almost counterintuitive to me to say it that way, because I think there's a real opportunity in aging and to get older in life and to not consistently look at it as a kind of the deficit model. What are you going to lose when you get older, Jacinta? What is everyone going to get worse at when they get older? Because there's many things that people improve at with age, and there's many people who enjoy different things as they age.
And that really goes up against social perceptions of ageing. We are very deeply kind of entrenched in that deficit model and, in fact, quite scared. Why are we not more aware of some of the brilliant benefits of ageing?
It's a great question and something that I ask myself all the time, and to the point where I've devoted my career to research in older people and ageing. So a part of that is I think the responsibility of everyone in the community to really appreciate older people for who they are and the differences and celebrate those differences, and seeing positive stories, realistic stories, meeting people in society and being interested in them and not stereotyping people. I think ageism is very much rooted in what you see and what you stereotype people into in their little boxes. So you're kind of scared of, what you think as the losses in aging, and maybe, it could be you're a little scared of what might happen to you in the future, especially if you're only seeing the negative stories of aging.
It's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy that we've done society-wide, isn't it, where we have this idea of aging and we almost accept it and perform almost into that, like we stop doing things because we think we can't because we're old. Is that why this research and this reframing, possibly not through that terminology, but the reframing fundamentally, is that why it's so important?
Exactly. So I think that reframing of everyone's thinking and expectations is really important to destigmatize things. And when people talk about things more and normalize things more, the fear tends to lessen. And the more stories you hear about how people are aging differently, aging well, using their strengths and harnessing and embracing those strengths, even though there are potential deficits and health problems and, the things that happen in a long life, I think it's a great responsibility for everyone to go out and maybe do some self-reflection about what your concepts of aging is. Because I think aging is something that we're all doing. We all age from conception or birth, and it's really a privilege to do so. I think not everyone gets the opportunity to age, and really not everyone gets the opportunity to age into their old age in the hundreds or the 120s. And that should be a joy in life, the things that you could see in your life, the things you could experience in your life. So I think that reframing is really important.
It's not only society-based though, is it? Because depending on, I imagine, personalities, where we've grown up, the circumstances we're currently in as we're experiencing some of the more challenging aspects of ageing, do you think that it takes particular types of people to sort of see the strength and the resilience and the possibility of ageing? Or what do we understand about that?
Yes, that's a good question. So there's been a lot of research about kind of mindset and positivity and that kind of concept of, I guess, seeing the opportunities in things and having a learning growth mindset. So that typically puts people in better stead for aging, so you can see the positives in things rather than becoming affected in terms of mental health of the things that happen in life that can be quite impactful. So I think in order to age well, and what people tell me is that stuff happens, and when you have a long life, you see things that are difficult, you see things that are potentially traumatic or that are in fact traumatic, and it really is about how you come back from that and what you learn from it, and sometimes just living with that in your life and figuring out how to live with that in your life. And at the moment there is thankfully a focus on kind of trauma-informed care and trauma-informed ways of being in the world. And I think that's increasingly important, just to be aware of how things like that affect people and how they react to things at any age, but particularly in our older population.
It's interesting when you look at our life stages and how we mark them in our modern culture. So you finish work in a particular way of thinking and then that's it. You're in retirement. And for a lot of people, conceiving what retirement is lots of games of golf potentially. But we're starting to see a shift in that and understanding that you've got the next maybe 40 years of your life ahead of you. What will that look like? Do you see that being significant in sort of how we now kind of reassess what our possibilities are as we get older?
Exactly. And I think it's always been the case that people don't just retire when they leave work. So maybe it is just the stories that we're hearing more of what people are doing in their older ages and in the next stage of life, because they've always held up the care economy, for example. Unpaid carers really are key and absolutely instrumental to holding up our healthcare and aged care industry. They are typically the ones caring for people at home and keeping them at home for longer.
How much does your actual quality of life impact your capacity to go into the future in that way?
So I think with the concept of aging well comes with it the quality of life piece. And so we have done a lot of research to come to the elements that we think lead to quality of life. And in the aged care industry as well, we have an instrument that is designed to collect quality of life with the domains that we think are important. It may not be perfect, but the domains are things like pain. How much pain are you in on a day-to-day basis? Because that will affect how you show up in the world. And again, pain is treatable for the most part in many cases. So that is something that really impacts quality of life. Things like your mood. So I think, things like depression and anxiety, which may increase as you age because of life stages. And I really want to emphasize that, yes, people can experience depression and anxiety, which is kind of normal according to the particular thing going on. So grief and loss are very normal at older ages, and people quite rightly experience that grief, loss, depression, anxiety. So that loads very strongly into quality of life. And again, it's not a normal part of aging, though. So it can be a normal reaction to life stressors, but when it becomes more clinically significant, there are things people can do to treat that. So
through all parts of our aging spectrum.
Exactly. So I think the piece there is depression and anxiety is not a normal part of aging. If you were depressed and anxious in your 40s, you would go out, hopefully, and do something about it. And so what I would like everyone to know is that it's also treatable in your late age, and people don't have to put up with it or accept it as part of being older.
Do you think that there is a potential kind of underside of this describing of age and these positive kind of frameworks, in that if you are someone experiencing pain, if you are someone who's going through mental health challenges, if your body is just not doing what it used to do, that then we will apply pressure almost on this expectation that, well, you should be happy about this. Do we have to be very careful about how we describe this?
I think understanding what it's like to get older and debunking those myths is very important. So, for example, one of my main areas of research is in dementia and dementia care. And a shockingly amount of people think dementia is a normal part of aging. And I will tell you with 100% confidence that dementia is not a normal part of aging. And if you are experiencing, or people are experiencing, cognitive impairments or problems with thinking and memory, then there are things that people can do for early diagnosis, quick diagnosis, and to live well with the diagnosis.
It can be such a tricky time in your life cycle, in that older period, when if you are isolated and you are experiencing mental health challenges as a result, getting out of that bind is quite complex, isn't it?
Exactly. So I think that's where the support comes in from your community and also from our healthcare industry. So one of the things that is coming more popular, thankfully, is something called social prescribing. So this is, we know the word prescribing, where people prescribe you your medication or your drugs. Social prescribing is the prescription of things that will help your social life. So we'll prescribe you to going to a Tai Chi class or a Zumba class or going to the library to start a book club, because there's so much evidence that being more socially connected impacts your quality of life in multiple ways.
And extending our idea of what is a prescription model even, so that it's not all based in the medicalisation of ageing.
And I think that's key, that holistic view of what it is to be a person. And it's not just your medical issues. And yes, you might have medical issues, but you're also a person outside of your medical issues. You're a person with wants and needs and values and connections to the world that has nothing to do with your arthritis. It has nothing to do with your cognition. It has nothing to do with your high blood pressure. All of that is who you are and what you value, I think.
The social model is a really important thing to consider.
Absolutely. And if you think about your local community, and if you are involved in that, think about, what do you do for your older population? What do you do to optimize the access to things? Do you organize specific things for your older population? Are there opportunities for them to volunteer, or even better, for you to pay them for their expertise? And really opening up society to all ages, and not just the important ages that we think are, I guess, the peak money-making stages or the peak fertility stages, and just the things that our society tend to value.
What's also interesting is that you draw that connection to how we value is often economically fueled, or how productive we are with our bodies. it's interesting that we haven't challenged that far more, especially when you describe things like how important volunteering is to our economy. When we can look at it through that framework, we still see an enormous amount of value as we get older.
Really, we need to see everyone show up and teach each other the things they can teach each other. And imagine if we didn't have a society where, older people, whether they be familial connections or church connections or workplace connections or community connections, sharing their wisdom, sharing their knowledge, sharing their point of view. They don't have to be wise, they don't have to be knowledgeable, but just that point of view that changes and is different from your point of view. That is the gorgeousness of diversity, I think, which I think in Australia that we're missing because we're so fearful of what, the younger people might say or what the older people might say as well.
It's not just hearing elder wisdom, it's also elders benefiting from perspectives that are coming from other generations, and that back and forward is, absolutely agree, that's what potentially we are missing in our Western culture. Do you think that the way we think about ageing when we're young is a predictor of how we might have a perception of ageing as we get older? And if we built ideas of positive ageing when we're younger, will we see more of that as we get older?
I hope so, Jacinta, because I think what we expect and what we internalise as a vision for the future really affects how we behave. And so if you think that as you age and, by the magic age of 65, you're immediately going to start wearing different clothes or start immediately using a cane or a walker or immediately not being able to skydive or rock climb, then that's a story that you tell yourself, which is internalised and is 98% probably not true. You might have to change the way you skydive, you might have to change the way you rock climb, but there's no reason why when you turn old, whatever that is, you think that you're all of a sudden incapable of doing the things that you love. So I think the stories that we paint and the stories that we share about older people are really important so people can see different models of ageing. So yes, some people might look like what you expected, but some people will surprise you in amazing ways and really in joyful ways, I think. So you can see the different ways people can embrace the opportunity of a long life.
For Mazza and Ian, their friendship and mutual interests have made them a force to be reckoned with. Ian attributes his ability to stay positive to Mazza, and they are both determined to live life on their terms. Look, you've spent most of your lives in broadcasting. You've been in television as well and also creative spaces. How involved are you in Radio 88 FM today?
Well, Radio 88 is our life today.
Yeah.
That's basically it. Our studio is here in our home. Ian spends, I'd say, about 89% of his time in the studio. I look after all the admin side of it, so that's a little bit different. But, yeah, it's our life.
Yeah, very much so. That's a big part of our lives. Not just now, it's been that way for years. It's a pretty hard habit to break, actually, being a broadcaster, as other broadcasters will tell you.
I agree with you, indeed. When did 88 FM, when was it born?
Oh, it was born about 11 years ago, or 12 years ago, thereabouts. We were both operating in another radio station, and our involvement in that came to an end, so we decided to set up a radio station in Castlemaine specifically for seniors. And that's what's happening at the moment. We've been doing that for quite a while.
And you've had some big achievements as well in the industry. Tell us about those.
Well, we worked in community radio for a long, long time, and there was one big exciting time where we achieved a Community Broadcasting Award. So this is a national award for part of Australia Remembers. Ian put a lot of work into that, and that was well deserved. It was called The Black Diggers, and it was a wonderful program, and that was something I think that really made us realise that we wanted to continue doing something with the aged, and that's always been a big part of our life. But yes, we worked in television. We did Blue Healers for many, many years. We used to travel to Melbourne, as we live in the regional area, travel to Melbourne every Tuesday, and we were regulars in the bar in blue heelers in Mount Thomas, which we love doing that work, and we've worked on a lot of other movies, haven't we, over the years?
Oh, heaps and heaps of movies as extras, and if you want a boring job, that's the one to get, because you stand around.
I mean, this is what you said, Ian, there, that, that was the old days almost. And I think that's part of what we want to find out from you today, how old age can actually be liberating. What's been your experience of getting older?
Oh, I don't know whether it's liberating. What do you think, Ant, in that?
I don't feel I've been liberated. We're probably busy as we ever were throughout our life. But it has given us a bit more freedom, I suppose. We're not tied down to 9 to 5 jobs. And we have the opportunity to pack our gear and go away for a few days at a time up to the river or down to the beach or whatever. We don't have to answer to anyone else, really. We just do as we please. I don't do as I please because Mazza tells me what I've got to do.
Someone's got to be in command.
Yeah, look, Ian, I'm backing Mazza all the way with that.
You would.
I'm interested in that because that's sort of part of it, isn't it, where your time is freed up to some extent for you then to actually follow passions that you've perhaps had for a lot longer.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, it's great. We can go up to the river, go fishing or whatever, swimming in the Murray or whatever, but we can take the radio station with us. In a little black bag. It's quite amazing, the modern technology. From when I first started, I won't go back into the old days, but it's an entirely different kettle of fish in this year, 2025, to what it was back in 1959.
I'm interested to know about your own experience of ageing, and it already sounds like you have, done so much to continue living a full and varied life. Was there a moment, though, when you thought, oh, my goodness, I've become old?
I think in my case, I think it was when we had a party for me and it was 80 and I had to stand up there and talk about all the years past. And then I sort of stood there in a dream and think, my goodness, have I done all that? Yes, I am 80 and, hip hooray, I'm here, I can celebrate it. I think that was the big turning point. There's a lot of things happen to you medically when you start getting older. I don't never say getting older. And, they put you back a bit. And then that's when you do take the time, I think, to think, hey, would this have been better happening to me earlier in life? Would I coped better or what? But we've always had a lot of support, and I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, it does. It helps us a lot. There's no particular time when I felt I was old. In fact, I still don't really feel like I'm old, although I am. I'm nearly 88, so, But the calendar says I'm old, but I don't feel old. I think I feel middle-aged more than old.
I'm really interested to hear, Mazza and Ian, about looking at you both and listening to you both describing your life right now. Again, it's full, it's vibrant. But of course, there's been some setbacks physically with ageing and the changing nature of what you can and cannot do. How have you been able to keep your positive mind frame?
Well, I've never thought about it, really. It just happens. I think I've always been a fairly positive person, but it doesn't occur to me to be negative, really. I try to be positive and, look at the bright side and the better side of things. And I think Mazza's pretty well the same.
Mazza, your thoughts on your resilience? I think what's interesting is that, you live a life and, the number of years kind of afford you opportunities to test yourself. And so when you get to an older age, do you think it's possible as well that we know ourselves well, we know we will bounce back and that there is the opportunity for positivity?
Yeah, I feel that way quite a lot. And I think it sort of starts when you get up in the morning. If you get up in the morning and think that it's going to be a bad day, the weather's terrible out there, you've got to go and see a doctor or you've got to go somewhere where you don't really want to, hey, bring yourself back, I can do these things. I've got to keep going.
Always try to be happy and to have fun and enjoyment. All our years of broadcasting, we did it because we had fun doing it and our audience had fun listening to us as well. And that was very important to me as a broadcaster, and I think to Mazza too.
Yeah, of course it is.
You have a positive frame of mind, you're happy, if you feel happy, your listeners feel happy too. If you feel miserable, so do those around you and listening to you.
It's absolutely true. It does really highlight the importance of how this stuff spreads. And I guess you creating that positive ageing Mazza in your community, potentially that's where these things also catch on. You know, you catch positivity from other people that you are surrounded by.
Exactly. That's very, very true.
So it's clear that the quality of life will have an influence on resilience and a positive mindset as we get older. But isn't that true at any age? Clearly, there is some truth to the ageing paradox, but it seems there is so much more to it. A big part of that is about society changing its perception of ageing and the opportunity it brings. Liz Hicklin is a perfect example of someone who has learned resilience but goes beyond that and recognises that there's no time like the present to live life to the full. When did you feel like you were getting older? Was there a moment when that happened to you?
It was. I wasn't well. I think I had a virus, and I was just lying on my couch, and it was near my birthday when I was 94, and I was trolling through my phone as one does, and I found this poem by John Betjeman. She died in an upstairs bedroom by the light of the evening star that shone through the plate glass window one night over Leamington Spa. I thought, oh, I love that rhythm. It's time I wrote a poem. And it's my birthday, so I'll write a birthday poem. So I did. The end of my life is looming as I reach age 94. And so it goes on.
Did that realisation change you? You are a social person and enjoy meeting people for dinner, for example.
Oh, it's on the calendar every day.
You've always got something on, don't you?
Well, I don't, but I get nervous if it's blank, if there are too many blanks.
You're a writer. I think that's something we need to be clear about. You're a poet and also a comedian.
Well,
come on.
A little bit I dip in here and there.
Well, that's what comedians do. If you get up onto a stage and you do a 5-minute set and it's funny, that's what a comedian is, which is what you do. And you discovered comedy and doing stand-up when you were 94.
I did. It suddenly dawned on me. You see, I think everyone has to have a passion in life. And I'd written a couple of books. One was a true story of what happened in my sister's life, and the other one was my memoir. But I don't feel as though I can write a novel. I can write short stories, but a novel is so convoluted, and I've not got it in me. So I thought, now, what am I going to do now? I have to have a project to live. And, well, I had written a couple of books of funny poems when I was teaching reproduction dolls, poetry books. I even recited them in America and at conventions all around the country as an after-dinner speaker. So I thought, well, maybe I can be funny. Maybe I can be a comedian. So I set myself up, which is very daring, isn't it?
It is daring. It is daring, though, because we often, and what I've thought about when I've known about you doing your first stand-up comedy routine at 94 was how I don't necessarily take those sorts of risks in life. But do you think that's also a key to living well? That, you know, as we age, that we're still pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone?
I don't think many people do it. I was always taught from a child to be out there, perform. So I suppose it's in my blood.
Oh, it's in your blood. You have had a very challenging life. This sprightly voice that we hear doesn't tell the whole story. And I'm interested to know, through the challenges in your life, how you are different these days in bouncing back when a challenge comes your way? Do you think you've built more skills when you get older to be more resilient and more content?
I don't think you never ever know how you're going to react. But you have to accept what comes your way and cope with it the best way you can. Yes, you don't expect to be confronted as much, but you never know. Life's full of challenges, isn't it?
It is. But watching you now getting up on stage doing comedy, you're writing, you're a slam poet, you go and compete at writers' festivals. The fact is your resilience in bringing joy into your life. Do you think it's even more so than perhaps what you did as a younger woman?
Oh, yes. I mean, when you're younger, you don't have time. You're bearing children, bringing them up, going through all their conflicts with them. Retirement is a time in your life to be yourself. Can I just read this to you?
I'd love you to.
Aging isn't about loss of youth. It is about finding who you were meant to be all along. Not everyone gets a chance to grow old. It truly is a privilege denied to many. Time to do things that bring joy. Freedom to choose your own path in life. The knowledge that very little truly matters in the end. We might be old ladies now, but we were the glittering prizes of the 50s.
And we mentioned before, and we don't have to go into this today, but the enormous challenges that you've faced in your life with the loss of both of your daughters to suicide. I think there'd be people listening who could not imagine how you not only survived that, but that you are perhaps who you are as a result of that, do you think?
Well, who knows? Who knows what goes into our makeup? Mental illness, yes. The hidden elephant in the room. It loomed large in my life, but not until they were teenagers, late teenage. But when you're faced with it, the challenges that you go through, maybe that makes you the person you are in the end. I've been everywhere. I've been into courts, prisons, you name it. I can't imagine the daughter of a Methodist lay preacher that I would be knocking on the door of a prison. What would my parents think about it? But that's what I did. My daughter, a beautiful person inside. That was about one of the milestones in my life, that you have to undertake them, but it'll pass. All that horror passes. And then some days are lovely, and that's what we live for.
And I've heard you also say that your life began at a certain point. When was that?
Yes, my life began at 90. I was like a caterpillar turning into a chrysalis and a butterfly. Yes, I discovered my writing. You're never lonely when you can write or read. Most important in your life, everyone. And if you can't read the books, listen to them on audio. The more you do this, the richer your life becomes. I didn't feel locked down at all. I was writing my life story. Of course, it was pretty horrific, but it got through the time. And you emerge at the other end. It's not an extraordinary life. It's not an extraordinarily written book, and lots of people will read it. But it's my life, and you ought to write your lives down because your grandchildren haven't got a clue what you went through. All they can do is look at their phones. Now, that's a big, deadly thing that's happened to us all. and how I waste my time on my phone. I'm horrified. It takes good hours from my life that could be filled with more enriching things. I think it's something that they're doing to detract from the intelligence of the world.
Liz Hicklin, I feel, as always, so good when I speak to you, and I thank you so much for joining us on this podcast today.
Thank you.
You've been listening to The Aging Ideal, a podcast for Uniting AgeWell, produced by Sound Cartel. Subscribe free wherever you listen to podcasts. For a list of really helpful services available to the community, you can head to the show notes of this episode.